Greetings, folks. Welcome to another one of my live readings. This time around, I'm going to be reading you my story, The Lady Loves Chocolates, from the Dark Valentine's Day anthology, Love in the Dark, from WPC Press. Isn't that a great cover? I absolutely love that cover. There's something about it. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that cover. Now, as always, at the end of the reading, I will do a short Q&A with you, the audience. So if you have any questions, get them down in the comment section and I'll try and get around to them. Apologies if I don't, but I will do my best. Now, if you want to get a hold of this book, what you need to do is go to getbook.at/Love in the Dark, and it's from WPC Press, and their address is down at the bottom of the screen, which is wpcindypress.com. Now, I will reiterate all that later, and I will tell you a little bit about how this story came about. But for now, I'm just going to dive into it. Okay, this is The Lady Loves Chocolates. Cassandra had an admirer. Leaving the call centre she worked at one late Wednesday afternoon in early February, she crossed the car park with a couple of colleagues. They were discussing the mundane events of the day. The job was so mind-numbing that the slightest irritation became earth-shattering news. Their topic of the day was the awkward young man that had just started work in the IT department. "I saw him," Joan, Cassandra's closest friend, giggled. "He was standing by the photocopier staring at you." "Don't be stupid, Joan. He probably can't see 3 feet in front of him out of those glasses." Joan erupted into catty laughter. "Yeah, he's such a nerd." "He's not just a nerd," Sarah, their other friend, piped up. "He's really creepy. Have you seen all the weird tattoos down his arms?" "Some devil worship stuff, I think." Cassandra shivered at the thought. Sarah gave her a dig in the ribs with the point of her elbow. "Maybe he just wants you to be his succubus." "Shut up!" Cassandra shrieked in mock outrage, secretly loving the attention. "I'm not sucking anything of his." "Ha!" Sarah snorted. "Well, you were moaning the other day that you hadn't had a date in ages. Maybe you should just give him a go." "Yeah, I bet you'd look cute in some horns and a tail," Joan snorted. "Maybe you should put that on the new dating app you use. Cassandra Carter, horny devil." Their raucous giggles lasted all the way to Cassandra's pink Suzuki Vitara, where Joan and Sarah parted ways with her. After fishing in her glittery handbag, she eventually found her keys and approached the door. What the hell? As she bent to look at the lock, she spotted something odd fluttering under one of her windscreen wipers. When she caught the lurid yellow blur in the corner of her eye, she had expected a flyer for a local takeaway or something, not a sickly-looking flower. Reaching out, she lifted the wiper and removed the bloom. It had once been some kind of beautiful exotic specimen, but was now crushed to oblivion. Several petals fell from it as she turned it over in her hand and fluttered away on a stiff winter wind. Something about the gesture had chilled her to the bone. Clearly, her friends had been right. It looked like the weirdo in IT did indeed have some kind of crush on her. Shuddering at the thought, she turned and tossed the flower into the bushes that lined the parking lot. As she turned, she caught another strange thing out of the corner of her eye. Across the street, a man in a yellow hoodie stood in the center of the pavement. Commuters and early doors drinkers bustled past the static figure. None of them seemed to even notice that he was there. Cassandra stopped and stared over. She had the definite impression that the figure was staring straight at her. This was despite not being able to see their face. The hood cast a perfectly black shadow that completely occluded the sinister person's features. As she stood and watched, a gust of wind slammed into her back, causing her to yelp and drop her keys. Her platinum blonde hair whipped across her face as she looked down to see where the keys had fallen. When she raised her head again, the figure had gone. She looked up and down the street for a second before crouching and getting her keys. Turning slowly, she placed her key in the lock and got into the car. The unsettling nature of the figure, combined with the frigid temperature, had caused her to shake uncontrollably. Turning the radiator up to maximum and turning the engine over, she took a place in the back-to-back queue towards the roundabout. The woman on the radio prattled on about the upcoming Valentine's Day events in the area. She sighed as she took the first exit towards the dual carriageway. It didn't look like she would have a date this year. With a heavy heart, she headed home, unaware of the figure in yellow on the bridge above as she passed. "Do you remember those old milk tray adverts?" Cassandra asked Jason, her hunky team leader, the following morning. "What, those cheesy ones about SAS men in tight black outfits jumping out of helicopters to put a box of cheap chockies on some bird's pillow?" Jason sat next to Cassandra, a fact that had her convinced that he fancied her. "Yeah," Cassandra grinned. "What, that is your ideal way to be wooed?" Jason arched an immaculately plucked eyebrow. "Yeah, it's so romantic. The idea that a man would jump out of a helicopter for you." She clasped her pink taloned hands together and gushed. "Plus, I love chocolates." "Fine. I'll just write down chocolates and put tight black outfits and balaclavas under turn-ons." Cassandra wasn't paying attention as Jason started to ask the girl to his left her choices for the office prize draw. It was a big deal. The winner got a meal for two at Nando's on Valentine's Day. Her attention had been grabbed by a sharp dig in the ribs from Joan. She'd nodded towards the photocopier. The creepy IT guy was back. "I did some digging," Joan whispered between chews of her gum. "His name's Chris, and get this, he's a goth." Cassandra's huge hoop earrings jangled as she turned her head to pull a face at her friend. "Maybe he sacrifices chickens to the devil then?" "I reckon so," Joan sniggered, as the two girls looked at the pale youngster poking the button on the photocopier. He slowly looked around and winked in Cassandra's direction. Cassandra gasped. Oh my God, that's so creepy." Jason had heard the commotion and turned to Cassandra. "What's creepy?" Cassandra drew in a breath, milking the moment for all it was worth. She might be able to kill two birds with one stone here. If she played the damsel in distress, maybe the chiseled and sporty Jason would pummel the pale and scrawny Chris. Then Jason might finally ask her out on a date. She'd played games like this before, and she hadn't failed yet. "That guy over there, I think he's stalking me." She jabbed a finger towards the photocopier. "Who?" "That guy over there." She turned to look. Chris had gone. "There's nobody there." Jason frowned in confusion. Cassandra chewed a nail before finally returning her attention to a computer screen. "Never mind." The weekend passed without incident, but that was hardly a surprise. Cassandra had spent Saturday shopping with Joan, followed by a pre-Valentine's club night down at the Siren's Rest. This had invariably led to her spending the majority of Sunday wrapped in her pink satin sheets, hugging a bucket. She had failed to snag a man and only had until Wednesday. This looked like it was going to be the first Valentine's Day since she was 15 that she would be single. She hadn't even liked half of the guys she'd dragged for a posh dinner. She just couldn't stand to be alone on the day of sex and romance. Monday had been the usual soul-crushing slog. She hadn't seen Chris all day and had almost forgotten about her admirer. Tuesday followed the same numbing pattern until she got to her Jeep at the end of the day. There was another mangled flower tucked under the wiper, but this time it came with a note. It was printed on a rectangle of bright yellow card and read simply, "Let me be your king." This had gone far enough. Dating a goth, even for one night, would completely ruin her image. Her friends at the karaoke bar would never let her live it down. Maybe he was scaring all the hot guys in sportswear in the office. Yes, that was it. Chris was the reason that she didn't have a date that year. It couldn't possibly be anything to do with her reputation for being something of a princess, could it? Tucking the card into her purse and stamping the flower into a grimy yellow paste, she started the engine and vowed to tear her potential suitor a new one the following day. Once again, she didn't notice the figure on the bridge as he followed the movement of her car with his concealed eyes. Just after lunch hour on Wednesday, things finally came to a head. Cassandra came out of the canteen flanked by Sarah and Joan and noticed Chris fiddling with Jason's computer monitor. Like a squadron of angered Valkyries, they zoomed across the office with the scent of prey in their nostrils. Cassandra marched right up to Chris and slapped him across the cheek. "Stay away from me, freak," she hissed. Chris was stunned. His lips formed a perfect O of surprise as he clasped his reddened cheek. "What the hell was that for, you crazy bitch?" Cassandra bristled at the B word, and he was lucky his other cheek didn't get a hand across it. "You know why, you creepy stalker." She took the yellow card from her pocket and chucked it in Chris's face. Stalker what? Chris was utterly bewildered, and by now the entire office was watching. "What the hell is going on here?" Jason demanded as he pushed his way between Chris and Cassandra. "This freak's been stalking me. He keeps sticking flowers under my wiper and hanging around in a creepy yellow hoodie." Yellow hoodie? Jason cocked another eyebrow. Chris shrugged. "Yeah, he even winked at me across the office the other day." "I did not. I winked at—" "Shut up, freak," Cassandra raged. This was her damsel in distress moment. Surely Jason would be hers now. "No, he didn't," Jason stated emphatically. "Wasn't him." This was most definitely not what Cassandra expected. "What? How the hell do you know?" Jason smiled. "For a start, what kind of goth would own a yellow hoodie?" He took Chris by the hand and smiled at him. "Secondly, it was me he was winking at." Cassandra's jaw hit the floor. "Chris is my partner. We've lived together for a couple of years now. And I can honestly say, Cassandra, you are not his type." As a low snigger spread around the office, Cassandra's world fell apart. That hunky Jason could fancy anyone other than her, let alone a thing like Chris, was unthinkable. She couldn't believe it to be true. As the amused laughter rose in volume, Cassandra grabbed her bag and ran for the door. Even her friends thought it was hysterical, despite them being one of the root causes of the whole thing. By the time she reached her Barbie-mobile, hot, salty tears had dragged her thick mascara halfway down her face like spider's legs. She fished out her keys, then gasped at the sight on her bonnet. The pink paintwork had been totally eclipsed by a mountainous pile of yellow flowers. Cassandra looked around in shock before reaching an epiphany. If Chris wasn't her admirer, maybe she would have a date after all. After diving into the driver's seat to fix her war paint, Cassandra stepped out and tossed her hair seductively. As she removed the flowers one by one, she ensured that she bent over enough to maximize the effect of her tight black skirt. As she discarded the final bloom, she found another yellow card. This one read, "Will you be my queen?" Without thinking, Cassandra raised her head to the sky and shouted, "Yes, I will be your queen." Almost as if in reply, a rumble of thunder announced the opening of the heavens. Yelping in surprise as icy water cascaded down upon her, Cassandra dived back into her car and hit the ignition. It didn't matter that she still had 4 hours of work left. She had to get ready for her date. The yellow chiffon slip and the tight satin dress she had selected in the shop had cost a small fortune, and the matching yellow stilettos and accessories had cost even more. But Cassandra didn't care. She was determined that tonight would work out. She was willing to pay any price for some real romance, and it had been made quite clear that yellow was her king's colour. Work had sent her a text message about disciplinary procedures that had been set in motion after she walked out. But again, Cassandra didn't care. She was about to become royalty. Reaching her expensive 5th-floor flat, she let herself in, was amused to see that her home assistant's light had changed from mint blue to canary yellow. It was flashing to announce that she had some sort of message. "Yes, Alexa, play message," she sighed as she set about throwing all of her pink makeup into the kitchen bin. "My name is Camilla," the home assistant replied in a sultry voice that sounded like it was filtered through smoke. "Sorry, Camilla," Cassandra replied. "What's the message?" "You have a message from Carcosa Dates." Cassandra's heart leaped. This was the dating app that she'd been using of late. The user, Hastur, says that he will come to meet his queen at 8. The data assistant then fizzed for a second as the light returned to its usual blue and Alexa was back. "I know several restaurants near to you." Cassandra washed back a handful of antidepressants with a glass of Chardonnay as she removed her pink nail polish and replaced it with pus yellow. Her body trembled as serotonin flooded her system. The hours passed quickly as she showered and commenced applying her golden eyeshadow and lipstick. After curling her hair, she slipped a golden tiara onto her head and pinned it with hair clips. As she slipped her dainty feet into her new shoes and smoothed down her dress, the discordant rasp of a trumpet announced that her date had arrived. Trotting into the living room, she was slightly upset to find nobody there. It was only after a second that she spotted a black box on the breakfast bar. Her heart leapt as she picked up the flat back box emblazoned with a curbing arabesque symbol in bright yellow. Attached to the lid with a square of sticky tape was a yellow card reading, "To Queen Casilda." Smiling and embracing her new name, Cassandra Casilda turned the card over. On the other side were the words, "Taste the forbidden fruits of dim Carcosa and I will come to you." It was signed with a simple H. Tearing open the box, Casilda selected one of the uniform round chocolates and took a bite out of it. The sticky soft centre popped and stained the corner of her lips red as the salty metallic taste swirled around her taste buds. Images flashed in front of her eyes, a grimy city next to a lake. Strangely twisted birds circling vast smoke-belching chimneys. Lines of people in grotesque masks lining up outside suicide booths. A castle. What she was seeing was her new kingdom, Carcosa. A steady whoop, whoop, whoop brought her out of her reverie. For a moment she thought it was the sound of helicopter blades. But it was something much better than that. It was the sound of her king's robes being battered by the wind as he stood out on the balcony. He was clad all in a tattered yellow and was wearing a featureless silk mask. Casilda leaped with joy and raced out onto the balcony. Hastur was standing on the garden table that she often enjoyed a summer G&T upon. Using a chair, she climbed up to greet him. The king in yellow reached out a skeletal hand and brushed 3 livid welts into her cheek. She gasped with pleasure and kissed his bony digits. As thunder and lightning raged overhead, Hastur reached up for his mask. It was time to kiss the bride. Casilda teetered forward as the pallid mask was torn aside. Thick, inky tentacles of shadow spread out from under the hood and coiled around her. In a second, the king had taken what he wanted and carried Casilda's soul off to the dread city of Carcosa. Cassandra plummeted 5 floors to the street below. Onlookers were horrified as her yellow dress slowly turned the more traditional Valentine's Day red. The end. Okay, that was The Lady Loves Chocolates. It's one of two stories that I wrote for this anthology. And the first one focuses on a man. And I wrote that one first, and that Mating Instincts it's called, and that focuses on a man who's not exactly a nice person getting his comeuppance. And I sent that in pretty early, and then I saw that it was still open, and I had another idea. I'll tell you how it came about in a second. But I thought, right, I've done a man, not a very nice person getting his comeuppance. Let's do the other flip side. Yeah. This one is one of those ones that was inspired by something completely random. I was talking to a friend of mine about cheesy old adverts in the 80s. And one of the ones that always stuck in my head were the Cadbury's milk tray adverts. They were just, oh man, the saxophone music, like some bad porno. But they were always like this James Bond-like type with the nice hair and the eyebrows and all this, diving off cliffs and swimming out to boats and leaving chocolates on some woman's pillow. But the one that always stuck with me, just because it was so bad, was this guy in a balaclava and a suit. He comes out of the helicopter, he lands on top of this like stately home / manor / thing, and goes in through the window, breaking and entering. And he leaves a box on the of chocolates on this woman's pillow. Now, it wasn't that, that was bad enough, but it was the fact that just before he climbs back up the rope, he takes his balaclava off and looks at the camera with a Roger Moore eyebrow, all because the lady loves milk tray. It was just so bad. It just always stuck with me for some reason. And I just decided, and I just had a weird idea about that. And then, of course, this is one of several stories I've written that contain the yellow sign, and that are sort of inspired by Robert W. Chambers' King in Yellow mythos, which runs parallel with the Cthulhu mythos. There's lots of crossovers. Lovecraft himself used it. I've written a few now. So, right, let's have a look. Neen, again, thank you. Bright and breezy for you over in Oz. Yo. David Green says, yo. Sorry, I just found that really funny. Afternoon, Michelle. Glad you could join us. Debbie Wimgate should be working. There we go. Yes. It was one of my little digs in there. Yeah, Deborah Dubas-Groom, or however you pronounce it, sorry. Nando's, A Girl Can Dream. Yes. Yeah. But that's always what it is on the radio when they give out these prizes and that. It's always a dinner for two at Nando's. It's always Nando's. Yeah. Tim, you old romantic. Oh, sexy Camilla voice. Yeah, I it was one of them moments I started doing it and going, oh, what are you doing? But once you've started doing it, it's too late to back out. Yeah, nothing says seduction like puss yellow nail polish. Indeed. The King in Yellow and romance. You cannot be. Well, this is it. It's got to be tried. It's got to be done, hasn't it? Really, I personally find Hasta quite saucy. That says everything about me, doesn't it? Yes, tentacles. I was waiting. See, eventually. Oh, that's how your parents met. David Green accent. Can I just point out? Yes, we have the same accent, but I'm actually older than him, so it's actually a Tim Mendees accent. Oh, you've been there all the time. Yeah, well, thank you. Nice. Yours got him through a skylight to a band. See, I think everyone in Britain remembers them adverts. They were just, oh, they were tragic. They were just so funny. I think it was just aided by the really dodgy sax music. And I can't like ham it up enough. It was like proper. You know, it was like a steamy scene in the 70s porno. It was, it was bad. Accents trademarked. Right. I'm sure Bez will have words about it. And every other mank will have words about that, pal. Excellent. Well, it looks like everybody enjoyed it, and I'm glad of that because yeah, with all my King in Yellow stuff, as it is King in Yellow, it is pretty bonkers. Yeah, so I'm glad everybody gets it. Oh, hi Dougie, cheers for joining me, mate. Yeah. Brilliant. Oh, right. Thank you, Deborah. Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, thank you. I do enjoy that one. It's like I say, it's one of them ones that just sort of came to me one night when I think I was just started going to bed or something. I just had this stupid idea, and I just had to go write it. Best kick a sod off, frankly. What, and take his fitness video with him? That's tickled me, that has. Yeah. Thank you, Brandy. Excellent work as always. Well, thank you all, guys. That looks like you all enjoyed it, and I'm really glad about that. Yeah, just before I go, I will say again how you get hold of a copy of this book. Like I say, there's 2 stories of mine in there, Mating Instincts and this one. Basically, type that in, getbook.app/love in the dark. And that comes from WPC Indie Press, which is WPC Press. Excellent. And as always, I've been Tim Mendees. Who else would I have been? If you want to check out my website, it's timmendeeswriter.wordpress.com. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit subscribe because there will be a whole bunch. There's loads of videos popping up on there. I seem to be doing a lot of these at the minute. Not just these, but interviews and stuff. So yeah, there's always some entertainment. I'm making a fool out of myself in some way. Right. Thank you all. And have a happy Valentine's Day. And I hope you don't get tentacles sucking your soul out through your face. Good evening.